Chapter 1972, Nidhogg. Odin's eyeball exploded, turning into a huge black mist in front of him. The mist quickly spread out, extending into black branches. It turned into a huge tree, growing vigorously behind Odin. Odin's left eye was gone, replaced by a pitch-black hollow. He stood beneath the tree, a terrifying aura connecting him to it, and something emerged from his empty eye socket. Hela and Loki subconsciously took a few steps back, because Odin was now filled with an aura that made them even more afraid. Odin rode behind the eight-winged horse, with the huge world tree floating behind him. He stared at the crow of doom rushing towards him, his eyes fixed on the demon-swallowing spear in the crow's hand. Then he pulled on the reins in his hand and shouted, "Giddy up!" The eight-winged horse let out a neigh. It was one with Odin and the embodiment of his will to fight. At this moment, it also underwent a transformation along with its master. A jet-black lightning bolt surrounded the two of them, and the eight wings spread out with a bang. The huge hooves trampled the ground and rushed towards the crow of doom. Odin's right hand formed a thunder spear, wrapped in silver lightning, and a special black lightning joined the silver lightning, looking like two snakes. The two sides quickly collided, and the crow of doom's demon-devouring spear aimed directly at Odin's head and slashed down fiercely. Odin raised Gungnir in his hand and fearlessly clashed with it. The powerful lightning quickly dimmed upon contact with the devouring spear, but the black lightning fell to the ground and stabbed straight into the crow of doom's body. Since the devouring spear could suppress supernatural powers, all he had to do was avoid the tip of the spear, right? The black lightning rapidly expanded beneath the crow of doom and instantly turned into a huge black snake. The devouring serpent, Nidhogg. When the crow of doom tried to block the attack with his spear, Odin's spear slammed down, and terrifying lightning exploded in front of him, turning into a cage of lightning. The crow of doom was unable to fight while distracted and was bitten by Nidhogg on his lower body. The black snake carried his body into the sky, then dove down towards the ground. Black lightning exploded across the earth, and the exploding black electric current swept across the land, drowning a large number of Raven soldiers in a torrent of black lightning. Odin held the reins in one hand and continued to charge forward. He knew that this thing would not be easily defeated, and once it was cornered, the crow of doom would split into two even more powerful individuals. Therefore, he must control it in the first stage without killing it. Odin already had a plan in mind. He raised his hands, forming the silver spear Gungnir in his left hand and the black spear Nidhogg in his right hand. With the eternal spear, both of these thunder spears had the ability to never miss their target. Before they are destroyed, they will pursue the enemy to the ends of the earth. If you can withstand two thunder spears at the same time, then I will use more thunder spears against you at the same time. I want to see how many you can block. The wings of the eight-winged Pegasus suddenly rose toward the sky like sharp swords. The eight-winged Pegasus was part of Odin, and just like his body, each of its wings was covered with blazing lightning bolts filled with powerful energy, which converged into 8 spherical lightning bolts. Combined with the 2 thunder spears in his hands, it was a 10-fold attack. The crow of doom crawled out from under the ground, and Nidhogg's attack had caused him serious injuries. In his first form, his combat power was only equivalent to that of a white bishop. As soon as he appeared, Odin's 10 lightning attacks broke through the sky. Boom! The sky condensed into huge thunderclouds due to Odin's power, and the 10 attacks were so fast that it was difficult to imagine. Thunder was one of the fastest energies in nature, and in an instant, it surrounded the crow of doom. The most terrifying thing was that these thunderbolts had self-awareness and would chase their target to death once they locked onto it. The crow of doom's pupils contracted, and he clenched the demon-swallowing spear in both hands and swept it wide. One after another, the thunderbolts were knocked down, and the black lightning split apart and turned into giant black snakes that swallowed him. No matter how fast the crow of doom was, it couldn't strike down 10 thunderbolts in an instant. An eternal spear struck his waist, instantly piercing his armor. In terms of lethality and armor-piercing ability alone, Odin was definitely among the strongest of humans. The crow of doom subconsciously reached out to grab the thunder spear. But in the next moment, he noticed Odin flying toward him on his 8-winged horse, aiming at him and clenching his fist. Boom! The thunder spear burst into a fierce lightning bolt. An electric current instantly surged from the inside of his body to the entire body of the Crow of Doom. Even the Crow of Doom, who was known for his physical strength, could not train his body to be as hard as armor. In the end, he was still flesh and blood, and his body lost control under the electric current. Immediately, two black snakes bit his shoulder and left leg. Boom! The electric current exploded, but instead of directly destroying the flesh before him with maximum power, it continued to discharge continuously. Don't worry, I won't kill you. This level of attack is not enough to be fatal, but it's still enough to paralyze you. Odin stared at the Crow of Doom's uncontrolled body and said coldly. This was his special sealing technique. Loki and Hela watched as Odin quickly gained control of the Crow of Doom. They were shocked, but at the same time, they were happy for Odin's transformation. This was the leader of Asgard, not a brute with only powerful strength, but someone with a powerful fighting mind. No wonder this soldier had once been known as the Desert Fox on the battlefield. Don't rejoice too soon, we still have a lot of trouble to deal with, Loki said to Hela. All around them, the Raven soldiers had surrounded them. They were not afraid to fight just because their leader had been controlled, and every Raven soldier was extremely difficult to deal with. Loki twisted her neck, making a cracking sound, and silently took the huge battle axe from behind her back. Leave it to me. I love killing these monsters. Her eyes lit up with a bloodthirsty glow, and she raised the battle axe in her hand and charged into the crowd of Raven soldiers. Chapter 1973, The Mountain of Corruption. The powerful force was unleashed without restraint, and the roaring sound continued to ring out. The Black Chariot level enhanced mutants had an overwhelming advantage over the Raven soldiers. It was like a mad lion attacking a group of groundhogs. After Odin controlled the Crow of Doom, he stared at the Lord of the Netherworld, whose body was trembling in front of him. Tell me, how do I leave this godforsaken place? But he didn't get any answer, because the Lord of the Netherworld represented the purest desires and will. In the dream, Mammon left the Crow of Doom with nothing but war and killing. He didn't even know that he was just a figment of a giant god's dream. Seeing the Crow of Doom's black eyes, which were filled with nothing but the desire to fight, Odin finally realized something and gave up on questioning him. He formed 2 thunder guns, erected a huge cross on the ground, and then nailed the Crow of Doom's body to it with 10 thunder guns. These terrifying thunderbolts could continuously paralyze his body and ensure that his power would not weaken to the point where he could not control the Crow of Doom within 10 hours. They had to find a way out of here before the Crow of Doom awoke. But what do we do next? Where do we go? Hela asked the question on everyone's mind. It wasn't enough to just leave this place, because there was more than one Lord of the Netherworld in the Demon's Eye. If they encountered other dangers or 2 Lords of the Netherworld, they would truly be doomed. However, Hela was confident that she would not die here, so she appeared more relaxed. Odin said without hesitation, let's find Chaos. We must obtain the Spear of Longinus in order to seal Mammon. Hela nodded and muttered, that's right. I hope that guy is still alive. Odin rubbed his chin irritably and frowned, if that guy dies, then probably none of us will survive. Absolute defense, Chaos. He was the most famous and cunning guy in the human world today, with unmatched skills in self-preservation and escape, a cunning mind that no one could match, and a group of quick-witted sidekicks. How could such a guy die so easily? Odin looked at the Raven soldiers in the distance, raised his right hand, and gathered a huge ball of thunder in his palm. Boom! Lightning shot up into the sky, constantly splitting apart like branches growing from a tree trunk, spreading out into a thunderous world tree with him as its root. The thunder tree burst forth with dazzling light, lightning raged across the earth, and thunder swept across the vast land, crashing into the Raven soldiers' formation. In the blink of an eye, a large group of Raven soldiers were completely blown to dust. He pulled on the reins and pointed his right hand forward with his spear. All soldiers, follow me. With him at the forefront, the entire army charged forward fiercely and quickly broke out of the Crow army's blockade. The Kutan Empire's army consisted of only 3 people. Emperor Saladin, his son, Crown Prince Amir, and the sage Halade of the Assassin's Order. After leaving the main force, they entered a world of desert. Endless yellow sand stretched as far as the eye could see. The biting wind swept across their dry faces, and the sand made them squint. This scorching sensation was utterly unfamiliar yet strangely nostalgic. It had been a long time since the end of the world that they had felt such a thing. Therefore, they did not feel the heat as unbearable. Instead, they enjoyed this rare sense of peace. However, if only there were no enormous, unidentifiable rolling object in the distant sand dunes. It was a gigantic meatball, its form indistinguishable as a living creature. Due to its extreme obesity, it appeared to be at least 300 meters tall even from a distance. Its fat skin glistened with oil, and there were large and small cracks on its surface. Most of its internal organs flowed out from the cuts in its skin like a dead corpse, but even so, they did not actually fall onto the enemies. The Lord of the Netherworld, the Mountain of Corruption. The three leaders of the Kutan Empire stared at the huge and disgusting Lord of the Netherworld with solemn and disgusted expressions. However, they had been here for a long time, and the huge, rotten mass of flesh had not shown any aggression towards them. The Mountain of Corruption was Mammon's instinct to devour everything. Its only pleasure was to eat, and it could eat anything, even the desert. The three did not want to provoke this unknown creature, so they kept their distance and searched for a way out of the desert for a long time. However, 2 days had passed and they still couldn't find a way out, so they ended up back where they started. It was as if there was some kind of force around the Mountain of Corruption that attracted people who entered this world to keep returning. Amir was a tall and thin young man. He was veiled, revealing a pair of narrow, slanted eyes that looked extremely dangerous. Combined with the black eyeshadow he had deliberately applied, he looked like the devil himself. Even though they were both dressed in black robes, he and his father gave off completely different vibes. He was like an assassin in the shadows, while Saladin was a king who stood in the shadows but exuded an air of royalty. Unable to find a way out for a long time, Amir couldn't help but walk over to Saladin's side, put one hand on his chest, and said respectfully, "Your Majesty, it seems that if we want to leave this area, we must start with this big guy in front of us." He stared at Saladin's back with a hint of rebellion in his eyes. "I think the way out of here must be on him." Saladin turned his head and glanced at his son, frowning slightly. His shadow could penetrate everything like mercury, but even so, he couldn't find a way out. In other words, this world was like his shadow, or like the chaotic dimensional space, an independent world. The only way to leave this place was to find a special space node, which was the only connection to the outside world. Or, they would have to kill the ability user who created this world. Because the world was constructed by the thoughts of ability users, when an ability user died, their thoughts would disappear. "This guy won't be so easy to deal with." Saladin reminded his son in a low voice, "Don't forget how we got here. The guy in front of us should be on the same level as the crow and the giant baby."